welcome to the Hammer Away Show. I am your host, Cynthia W. Hammer, and we are live on Facebook. Okay, I don't know where to start, but we'll start by praying in. Father God, thank you so much for allowing me to be here. Heal this nation, Lord. Let us come together. Let us heal in a conversation that is 401 years overdue. Thank you, Lord. Please let me be a vessel. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so I had a lot to think about. I'm still on my book tour for my third novel, The Seven Rivers. So everyone go to authorhouse.com or Amazon or Barnes & Noble and please pick up a copy of The Seven Rivers, A Good Case, or Iceberg. Usually I have it and hold it up for you, but most of you know my work. And I am so grateful for the entire East Coast, for the Midwest, for Southern California, the Southern Coast of California, for giving me a warm welcome. And the book tour is doing very well. I am on book 4, which is the sequel to A Good Case about the 2 Black caregivers working in Beverly Hills. Now, with that said, we're going to cover Black Lives Matter, of course. We're going to cover racism. We'll cover the top topics. But I did a great show last month on the opioid crisis, and people wanted a little more. So I'm just going to touch on it because I am not a doctor. But the opioid crisis kind of has gotten washed under due to the COVID and the death of George Floyd and all the other black men and women and other brown-skinned people who have been killed in this nation by the hands of, they keep saying police officers, white police officers, but you know, the news is, I think we need to emphasize that so people can understand that there's something going on here. I don't want to go too far out. So the opioid crisis is getting a lot of attention because of this is the systemic racism in the country, because a lot of white kids are overdosing, and they're speaking on it now after the pharmaceutical companies have made enough money that now suddenly it's a health crisis. If you remember in the 90s, late 80s and early 90s, when crack cocaine came out in the black neighborhoods, it was a criminal problem. But now it's a health problem when it should have been a health problem when crack cocaine came out. So that's the systemic racism that people are talking about. Now it's getting a lot of attention because white children are dying from opioids. Well, it's an addictive. Opioids is addictive. You may have a college student who you find in the emergency room often with a broken wrist or a sprained ankle, you know, and it all seems innocent. So I'm briefly going to touch on the signs. Usually a kid withdraws from social activities. They are not coming home often when you expect them to come home from college, which college we know is not happening now. But a lot of times we don't know when a kid is going into the room or off to themselves or they're studying. It's a lot of weight loss, a loss of appetite, but it is an addiction. So they're finally addressing it as a health problem, and it's a physical, it can harm you physically, mentally, spiritual deficiency, and financially. And because it's called an addiction. And so you do need to help for it, and it can be considered a mental health problem. You know, not saying they're crazy, but anytime you put something into you that changes mind-altering and mood-changing substance, it has to be addressed as a mental health, medical health problem, because you're changing your perception of the way you see things. That's why I'm not a big fan of people who smoke pot, but that's a whole nother subject, and that's just too big of a business, and I'm not focusing on that. There's too many important things to focus on, but that'll open up a whole nother can of worms one day. We always like to make our money first and then fix the problem later, because America's greedy. That's what racism's been all about. It's greed. So one of the concerns was that there's so many people locked up because of the time they had to endure for a nickel bag of rock, and they're doing 5 to 10 or 15 to 20 years, possession, because they made laws that, if you got caught with any substance, they'll throw you in jail. And it doesn't equate on the time, the crime doesn't fit the time. But that's racism. That's the systemic racism set in the system. Your child, white, does different time than a brown-skinned child. So what you have is also the system where you could do a white-collar crime, and you are tried in the civil courts, and you could have stolen millions of dollars and harmed and tore up businesses, and people jump off buildings, and I'm pushing it because I'm trying to get somewhere, and the crime is bigger and carries a heavier weight of damage, but that person's tried in a civil court and they don't do any time, just like 6 months probation, pay the fine. A kid gets caught with a joint in his pocket and suddenly he's 18 years old and he's going to jail for 10 years. That is ridiculous. But that's the system that we've been living in, and people wonder why everything has boiled over. We are in a time where we're in a healing process. It's a crisis. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. It's going to be painful, but healing and growing is always painful. It's never easy to change and grow. And there are some people who are not ever going to want to have this topic, the conversation. That's fine, because it works for them, and we can leave them in their ignorance. But when you talk about equality, when I'm starting with this opioid crisis, when people are trying to say that there is an imbalance here, and you speak on it little pieces at a time, people use different words to try to stifle you, and they'll give you something that you didn't ask for, and you never fix the problem. We just keep painting over it and painting over, a little crumb here, a little crumb there. There's not a color-skinned person, anybody with different color skin than black or brown, have ever had to ask for freedom or to be left alone or be not to kill. Do not kill me. There's not a race. I hate race. There's not a person with a white skin that has ever had to ask America, please don't kill me. So I wanted to touch on that because that's the difference. And so when it comes to addiction, it is a mind-altering, mood-changing substance, and it does require medical attention. How it comes about, that's a whole nother story. I want to go into some of the topics, and I always tell you guys, if you don't like what I say, then get off of my Facebook page. I will not be crying. If you decide you don't want to hear what I have to say, you don't want to watch me. There's too many people sitting on the sidelines. Instead of adding to the conversation, they're just disagreeable about everything. And that's a huge problem, because somebody will say to you, oh, Black Lives Matter. And you'll say, well, all lives matter. We know all lives matter. And that's just an ignorant ass thing to say to anyone when somebody's kid just died. If you're not going to be part of the solution and you don't want to help, then shut up. And then, quit commenting about things that you're not trying to change. If you're not trying to change, I'd rather you to text, say, I don't give a damn, it works for me, I'm not going to change it. That's more honest than insulting people who are trying to make a difference. How come it's so offensive for you to see people trying to make a difference, but it's not offensive to see somebody's knee on someone's neck? Or it's not offensive for someone to throw a rope around someone's neck and hang them from a tree. It's not offensive, but we have left you alone and not killed your children. But yet you can go to sleep at night when somebody else's children is dying. That's a problem. So we all have to take a look, and we're all responsible for ourselves. So if I say to you, you're comfortable with somebody being hung from a tree, the response in my mother's decade would have been from a white lady or man, you get off my property, you get out of here, you're sick, I can't believe you said that to me, I'm going to call the police. So you'll call the police on someone speaking from their heart and sharing an emotion. You're not responsible for what happened, what my mother or parent or aunt have said to you, but it's here in my generation, and we don't want it for the next, because our parents were tried to have the conversation and they got a lot of pushback. Well, what's the pushback about? It's greed, because there's no such thing as racism. I mean, there is such thing as racism. Let me back that up. Well, actually, there really isn't, because I'm going to get there. Because as long as we keep talking about racism, we'll never really get to the root. So, and you guys have to do some study on that. Okay, there's no such thing as race. There's only one race, and that's the human race. We are different color, hue of skin. And you don't see dogs, cats, or horses arguing about you go back to the back of the stall or eat from the trough because you have a different color coat than I do. Only us as humans would be dumb enough to come up with the idea that one color of skin is better than the other and try to sell it until it beat another skin color into the ground. And anytime a person discovers that it's not right, they're going to say, ouch, get off of me, it's not right. And it took someone dying on camera for people to say, oh my God, where the hell are we? We've always known where we were. Can you imagine coping with that if the shoe was on the other foot? I have friends from all skin colors. And it's embarrassing to be in the year of 2020 and have to have this conversation. It's embarrassing. And you know, I still meet people right now that think that this is such a disgusting thing to talk about. I thought things were better. Better for you. But here's the thing. I'm not getting sidetracked with that. That once you understand that racism started from there's no such thing as white supremacy, because there's no such thing as someone being better than someone else. I knew that as a kid. Here's a secret. Black people always knew that white people weren't better than them. We just don't have time or the energy to argue with you about that, because the argument has always led to trying to put us in jail. There was a time when you'd be slapped in the mouth for calling someone the N-word, and then you'd walk away with your tail between your legs. You see, today now it's escalated because there's so much hate. But a majority of the world, I believe, we really don't hate each other. It's just the problem of teaching someone as a child that a person darker is a thief. I'm not even going to repeat it, but I've watched white children run up to me and happy to see me, and then I've watched some of them look at me funny, and then I see their parents with the long beard or, you know, a bit of a redneck. I know what that sounds like. I don't care. But, you know, that you can tell they're teaching them something that they shouldn't. To me, that's their problem. Just take it over there. You know, as long as your kids are not joining up with some militia group to start killing black people one day, I don't care who you hate. Because hopefully, if you do serve a God, you'll come around and you'll learn better. Christianity, that's a whole nother thing. But if you understand where racism started from, as long as we talk about racism, it is an evil spin. It's like walking into a tornado. It's evil. It's not of God. It's of the devil. So it'll never be resolved if you look at it as racism, because racism is not a real existence. You can't shoot something out of the sky that doesn't exist. It's a spiritual evil that has been created by the darkness. God, nowhere in the Bible does he talk about race. I think one time they talk about a bloodline, but he talks about the skin color. He never talks about he talks about the blood. He never talks about one being greater than the other, or black race, white race, never. So if there's all these Christians out here, the reality is we know that people, so they could rob, steal, and pillage and lay their head down on their pillow at night, why they rape and kill slaves and have babies with black women, and the white women don't say anything so they could go to sleep at night and sing on Sunday morning, you have to tell yourself something. So you start to make up stories that you were better than, and that these persons are less than human, because how can you slaughter and rape and steal from your fellow man and walk into church the next day and not repent, or that you're holier than thou? You have to tell yourself the lie. And like they say, you tell yourself a lie long enough, you'll start to believe it. So there's no such thing as white supremacy. That is created by man, and it's not of God. So when we talk about the Black Lives Matter, it's time to have that conversation, for as painful as it will be, but there's so many things intertwined, and we have survived because we were the first civilization. If you know anything about Africa, Egypt is in Africa, okay, which was called Kemet. It's where the first black woman was found. It's first black civilization. Do some of your math. But here's the thing. You wonder why your kids, African American children, have been in the street, they're lost. If you tell a man what he'll be, that's what he'll become, male or female. So you sandpaper our history out of the country. So when I sit in class, all I know is George Washington Carver invented peanut butter. And then, the teacher says, "Oh, Cynthia, what do you know about slavery?" Hello, I'm 11. Like, I don't know anything about slavery, but the whole class looks, hoping that you can tell them. That's very disgusting, but they don't teach anything else. And we've discovered and invented and done so much, and the history's been scraped away. So yet you get out of school and you're like, what did I learn? Freaking Betsy Ross. Who do I give a shit that she made the flag? Did she really? Because I doubt if she actually sewed that flag. She probably threw it to some slave lady, and she probably sewn it and made it and came up with the idea, because so much has been lied about. So you don't tell a kid who they are, and you dim the lights in the brown kids' eyes that you're teaching. So the educational system needs to be changed. So I like the fact that people are finally all on board and saying, you know what? Black people should have their history in the books, and enough already. But when people were speaking out individually or different groups, what more do you want? Oh, you want this? Or let's kill them, or let's shut them up, or we'll fire you, or, you're not going to get that promotion, you won't get that loan. There was all kinds of white lash, as they call it. And the thing is, yeah, black people, we're very creative, and we do have it going on. But you know what? We're speaking up collectively because we're not going to allow our kids to live through this. I'll be damned if I'm going to let another generation have to fight for something that's already theirs. People say, people said to me, white people come up to me, and I'll have the conversation just a little bit, because it's not my job to teach them, it's their job. But it's also not my job to cut their head off. I'm not as angry, but I'm angry enough if I need to be. I'm not going to cut their head off when they want to say something, whether it's they're sorry or they want a better understanding. But a lot of them will cop to they were afraid themselves to say anything, and also that they were part of the problem and they know it. And we say, we just need to move on. We need to have conversation. And I hate this term. It is what it is. But this is where we are. And this is where God has us. And it's no coincidence. God is in charge. I am glad and relieved, because all of my life, and I sound like Oprah, all of my life I had to fight. But when I wrote my books, I realized that I fist fought from elementary all the way out to high school. Now, I have friends that have never been in a fist fight. I have fought literally 5, 6, 9 people at one time, fought for my life. No person should ever endure that. And someone says, oh my God, well, you're doing so well. You have no idea. It's the grace of God that I have my mental state. It's the grace of God that I have my sound mind. Nothing but the grace of God. And it's the grace of God that I don't put my hands around their throat. So we're not looking for revenge, but I do want economic equality. We will have economic equality. And, what I was saying earlier at a meeting is just, I'm not looking really for you to give me anything. The reality is, just leave me the hell alone. Stop trying to stop me from getting it. Because I can soar. If I've soared with your knee on my neck, and that's no lightning, that's no downplay to George Floyd, but that is the saying, when Reverend Al Sharpton said, get your knee off our neck. If I've been able to soar, can you imagine where I'd be if I didn't always have to, when I walk and you see me as a brown-skinned woman, which I'm beautiful, I wouldn't trade my blackness for nothing. I'm black to be black, and I'm grateful and I'm proud. But if I walked into a room and you didn't decide, should I give it to Sally? Because Sally's really not that good, but we're going to look out for our own. That's what we faced for years. There's just so much. And we're tired. And we're not going to have our kids go through this. Period. And let me tell you something. I do write books for children, and a lot of my audience and support is black women and white women in all races. Not all races. All colors. But if you put your hands on me, I will tell you to take your hands off of me. I don't put myself in that situation, but I think that it's time for people to get some courage and start taking up for each other. If you see someone wronging someone, you do have to butt in. Someone said not too long ago that we should mind our business when we see confrontation and let it work itself out, that the universe somehow works it out. Well, that was said from a white man. So that all works for you, fine and dandy. And that's just another stupid way of having us feed into the lie. So anyway, let's do some education here. Where am I at? Okay, so I don't know if I talked about some of the systems set in place. I remember when they talked about affirmative action, and it always seems like people don't understand that most of the wealth, 55% of the businesses, are owned by white women. When affirmative action came out, was it 1955? Oh no, I where's my notes? It doesn't matter. Okay, you guys look it up. That they did hire some black women. They did hire some black people, but white women hijacked that. They jumped on it, and that's why you see so many women who, they already had rights. They were married to men with Fortune 500 companies. They were married to wealth or inherited wealth, but yet they had to hijack what we had. So some people were like, well, I'm not hiring no black person. So they hired a woman, a white woman. So we didn't even get ahead with that, and that was ours. And so I think it's interesting when people don't want you to speak up. That's a scary place. And I have the right, we shouldn't have to say I have the right to speak up. We shouldn't even have to say that. We can exercise our rights anytime we choose. The thing about it is, why all of a sudden do you have something to say when people want something for their life and for their children, the same thing you have, but you didn't have a problem with black men dying? But now you speak. You speak when somebody says, I need more, I need this, I need that, I don't like this, ouch, stop doing this to me. You have a whole lot to say. That's racism. And if you don't know, you are a racist. If you were speaking about people speaking out and needing more for their life and for their families, and reparations, whatever else we need to change the system, then you are a racist. Because where were you when the KKK was formed? How come you haven't busted up the KKK, white people? Because they hate people of color. So how come you haven't busted up that? Or maybe you're a member. Because that's what it comes down to. It looks like the police have been infiltrated. I don't really like the subject, but it looks like it's been infiltrated by like other groups or cult or culture. Maybe the white nationalists or the Aryan nation or whatever hell they're called, skinheads, because the sheer hatred. There was a time where you just got somebody out of the car, gave them a ticket, or handcuffed them. Now you're throwing them on the ground and jumping on top of them like you're ready to hump them. Like you're on top of them, wrestling them around, and your whole body's on top of them. And I'm like, since when do police throw you to the ground and like 5 guys jump on one person? It's weird, and it's you're full of hate. And I do believe we're in the last days. because this is in the Bible, the father against daughter and mother against daughter and siblings against each other and color of skin and discord against each other. These are the last days. Now, I don't know if it could be 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, but we are winding down. And I believe that God, this is a reckoning. This is atonement. This is atonement because he's watched and he's heard the people's cry. You know, you can't kill what God put in the earth. You are not God. I watched this one gentleman tape a policeman who tried to arrest him for walking in his backyard and said, well, do you live here? Like, well, you might be trespassed. How are you going to trespass in your own backyard? But that's how crazy they've gotten. And the guy said, he said something. He says, oh, no, it's a different case. They had a young man on the ground. They handcuffed him. They were like, dude, just handcuff him, pull him up. He was coming to visit me. He walked to his car. He said, dude, just, handcuff him and pull him up. And they all were on top of him, kneeling on his back. And the guy said, the young boy said, I can't breathe. He says, man, the guy filming says, man, he can't breathe. Get off him. He can't breathe. He says, the cop says, oh, yeah, he can breathe. And the kid says, how do you know? Are you a doctor? Like, what is going on? But see, if the cameras are showing this now, what has happened in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s? How many of our kids are missing or dead, thrown in swamps, thrown over the hillside, buried in somebody's yard? You know, if this is what they're doing on camera, what happened before the cell phone camera? Because you don't just start killing people unless you've already groomed. It's almost like a thief. You just don't start robbing a bank. You've been a thief for a long time. You just don't start stealing cars. You were taking hubcaps and tires for years. You just don't become a professional thief unless you've been stealing for years. You don't become a killer of black men unless you've been killing for years. Because I think when I was a kid and I hit someone, I felt horrible putting my hands on someone else. I haven't touched someone in years. It's a horrible, about 25 years since I've actually punched someone. It's a horrible feeling to harm another human being. So it's got to be a horrible feeling to take someone's life. It has to be a horrible feeling. You probably can't sleep at night, would never want to do it again, you'd quit the force. So I'm thinking you'd have to be used to it. That's just me. So, and I'm going to say it, we should be able to speak freely without fear. I fear no man, I trust God. But God says that we've been quiet too long. So with that said, I want to talk about some of the things, because if we're talking about Black Lives Matter and whatever they choose to do, whatever they're trying to accomplish, I will back them as long as we stay focused on the subject of making real changes. I know they're taking down Confederate flags. People are like, oh my God, they're knocking heads off of statues. These are slave owners. You know, if it incites hate, because there's a kid somewhere who is 15 years old, who's angry, and he still has symbols to make him want to say, yeah, let's get those blacks. Those are symbols. You keep those symbols of hate. It keeps the hate in the land. And how could you think it's okay? Why is it so great for you? Is it the best thing you ever did was kill a black person? Is that something to celebrate? Are we not better than that? Maybe we could actually, do some great stuff like go to the moon, build railroad tracks, or, discover a cure for cancer. Like, can't we do something other than fight and beat each other and shed blood? Can anybody do anything other than steal land and harm another human being? Isn't that a little too easy? Why in the hell would you celebrate slaughtering people? Why would that be a celebration? Why would that be something to be proud of, that you stole Texas from Mexico? Like, what are we, and you talk about black people being inhumane, like not human. That's the most inhumane thing, is to kill another human being. But you'll fight for those dogs and those animals. So you have to take a hard look at what you actually celebrate and what's really important to you. Because slaughtering Indians and taking it away from Mexico, people are taking down those monuments because that's really nothing to brag about. let's get together and be better scientists and create cures. And I'm all for let's save the land, the green, the rivers, and the lakes. I'm all for that. Let's come together and do something that's really effective for our country instead of celebrating slaughtered blood and the heroes that you call heroes. Those are not heroes. Those are terrorists. And I'm being very rough because it's time that someone says it. Because to keep those statues as we walk down heading into D.C. where Martin Luther King stood, we got to look at racist people that own slaves. How does that make your children feel? Our children. So we're speaking up for our children. And what do you tell your children? You have to start telling them the story of slavery. And wow, their kids are like, what? You did what? So now you have to tell the lie to cover it. So you're perpetuating the hatred. So yes, it's time for the nation to make that hard turn. And it hurts, but we're going to make the turn because we're not going back. Time is up. So with that said, this is for all white people, okay? Why do you lay by the pool on the beach? For all the ones who hate the color of my skin, why are you trying to get a tan? And I need somebody to really, really answer that. So is it your hatred, is it in your head or is it in your heart? Because we thought it's deep in your heart, and that's going to be a tough one. That's going to be a whole lot of praying and a whole lot of changing one day at a time. But it could be in your head. So I can't change what's in your head. God can change your heart. But what we're not going to do, I'm not focused on you and what you say and what you do. I never have. That's why I've gotten where I've gotten. I've never focused on excuse me, what other people thought about me. My dad raised me. He said, you're no better than anyone and no one is any better than you. And I had no idea how deep that information carried. I wondered why he always said that. But look where we're at in 2020 and we're still talking about racism. How pathetic for our nation. Just freaking pathetic. So that's a question in closing. I want to know why people lay by the pool and try to get a tan. So let me see if I covered everything. Oh, and you know what I like about this subject? Because I think one day the sandpapered history of black people will one day be back into the history books. And the question of how much we had to cover our hair, because now anytime you tell somebody's crown that you're scared because, oh my God, our hair is beautiful. And we don't have to cover our crown, and we haven't for years. But the fact that you will even attack something that a person can't wash off, or what was it, cut your hair bald because my hair terrifies you. But maybe one day we'll learn about, why black people had to straighten their hair. Maybe we'll actually tell the real history in our nation, because we have woolly hair and it's beautiful. And I'm grateful to God to be in this time with a voice and with the courage, because everything goes with a purpose. With me growing up in an all-white neighborhood, and my parents used to say, those kids aren't your friends. It wasn't until I wrote my book that I realized they used to say things like, they use the N-word. They say, oh, not you, Cynthia, present company excluded. And I used to baffle me. And finally, as I got older, because I was afraid that they could hurt me, and I was tough. But I'm saying they were devious. They were devious. And I mean, hurt me in a way like, we'd all be going down a mountain and maybe it's slippery and one of them would push me. I had those kind of friends. So I always knew who I was dealing with. So I tried to fit in, to be cool and be tough and be just as mischievous so I wouldn't be the target. And I realized that as I wrote my books. But I realized how much I endured and how prejudiced they were. And I was their exception to the rule. Oh, you weren't so bad for a black person. That's what they used to say. You're not so bad for a black person, until I got old enough and said to get the hell away from them. But as a teenager, I would say, you know what? If we're going to be friends, you can't say that. And I'd tell one white girlfriend, and she would tell the rest of them, and then they'd stop doing it. But the thing is, this is what I had to endure. And I had it better than a lot of other people, where if you opened your mouth to a white person, you may not be living, or your parents could lose their job or their home. So this has been something that's been on us for a long time. Can you imagine enduring that and still soaring, still able to soar through the grace of God? So It's time to break free. I love being black. I love my black brothers and sisters. There's not a thing I wouldn't do. I am black first. I love white people. I love the skin color of a Japanese person, of a Hispanic person, but I'm black first. I'm black first. And it's time for us to, like they say, always bet on black. If I'm going to do any business, I would love it to put back into black communities and give a black person an opportunity. But if you're good, I won't say I won't hire a white person, but I'm going to look at the black resumes very strongly, because this is the opportunities that we didn't get. If I was a better candidate, I did win a lot as the better candidate against any color, skin color. I did, because I was ready and prepared. But some people don't get that opportunity. They're automatically out because of the color of their skin, and that is wrong. And you know what? People say, I'm tired of talking about this. You ain't never talked about it. Let's just be real. You ain't never talked about it, because if you had talked about it, it wouldn't be so weird. You wouldn't be so upset, and it wouldn't be so painful, and you wouldn't be so arrogant to think that you could harm someone, and you kick me in the gut and say, oh, that didn't hurt so bad. Well, you got enough cushion there. Or, well, maybe if you hadn't had such a gut in the front of my foot, then it wouldn't have hurt. Like, that's the kind of stuff we've been hearing when it comes to racism. These unplausible explanations to be hateful. And we've kind of explained it away and, made our own back door. Like, okay, let me get out of here. Okay, well, you're right. Your foot, maybe if I was in your way, maybe if I came at 2 o'clock and not at 4 o'clock, I probably wouldn't have been, it wouldn't have happened. We start making our own escape route to deal with your crazy ass. And that is something that may need to be addressed. I believe my mind is sound, but I believe some people have had some serious issues, because think about it. Think about someone purposely, and I talk to people today, especially in their 70s and 80s, some of these people, that they have it down packed. Just rude and nasty. Oh, you're a writer. What's mean? Oh, you didn't know I could read and write? Now, I can read and write, but you just like pretending that you don't think I don't and hope I get it. That's pretty messed up. Like, I'm pretty sure if I went around saying, oh, you actually can read, but I don't, because God is watching, and I don't have no right to treat someone like that. That's why I had zillions of opportunities to give it back as good as I got it. But God is watching, and God says, vengeance be mine. And no one deals a hand like God. Look at this pandemic. Unfortunately, it's here, and it's a reckoning, and only He can take it away. And unfortunately, because of the economic inequality, a lot of our brothers and sisters of all races who can't afford medical care are dying. And had you give a person a job, they can take care of their family and hold their head high, and they don't have to look for an escape, whether it be drugs or anything else, or gambling or hustling to make $1 to put food on the table, because a person feels proud when they can take care of their family. And don't say those dumb things, well, quit having so many babies. White people got a lot of babies too. That's a crazy thing to say to someone, as if you don't have hopes and dreams, and that just you belong here and nobody else can make a life here, whether they have 10 or 11 kids or 12 kids. Maybe they want to provide for them with a job that you won't give them, and they're more talented, or a trade that you could teach them, but you think it's better to take them out of the education system and put them in the judicial system. So you have all these things that are woven in, or you build jails that, who's going to fill them? Oh, you can have a private jail in the middle of Minnesota, wherever the hell it is, and let's go and hit the poorest black town. Let's sit outside of their neighborhood, ticket them, till they have to go to court or pay the ticket, until the ticket, like they did in Ferguson, it's $60. That's electricity bill or pay the ticket. Electricity is more important. You got 4 kids in the house. Oh, guess what? You got a court date. Oh, no. Better yet, we're going to lock you up because we put a warrant out because you failed to come to court. So now you're locked up. You missed work on Monday morning. They processed you out, but it wasn't before 9 a.m. and you've lost your job. So it's purposely done. And shame on you for doing it. And God saw that. I don't know how you live with yourselves, whether you're brown skin or white skin, to harm another human being, you have no right. Go find something to do with yourself. Think about it, how messed up you must be to think it's okay to harm another human being. There's so much to do in the world. And I know it's not that easy, but there actually is better things to do in the world than to size a F with your fellow man. But it must be a purpose. It's evil and it's for money. And once you cross that line, and the first time, little conscience, you get away with it, get a little payoff in your pocket. The next time, each time becomes easier and easier, and then you're caught up and there's no turning back. But there's always a repentance, and God forgives, and you can always stop yourself from being more of an asshole. So with that said, I love you guys. Thank you for listening to the Hammer Away Show. I want to make sure I have covered everything. I want to make sure that one of the things I really am big on is our education system. So I want to make sure that we are actually teaching our kids about how awesome they are. I want to make sure we're teaching our kids that their skin is beautiful. I want to make sure we use the proper terminology as we go forward. When you have a couple together, black skin or white skin or tan or beige, that it's biracial. It's a biracial relationship, and you create biracial children. You don't create mixed children. Some of you guys have children and you say they mixed with what? Puppies are mixed. Kool-Aid is mixed. Your children are biracial. Come on, we can do better, because those are like and let's do this. Let's stop saying yes ma'am, no ma'am. That is so slavery. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, or the master's bedroom. It's a bigger bedroom. Or think of another word, a huge bedroom, a large bedroom. The master's bedroom is disgusting. That we need to just grow as a nation and wake up and realize that we're beautiful. All of us are beautiful, and we all contribute. And get the hatred out of your heart. And I know that sounds like the violin. The hatred in your heart is your issue. In your head, it's your issue. It's not going to be mine. I'm not here to fix you. But what happens at the end of this nose is my business, and I have to be the best person I can be. So, with that said, we're in 2020. Quit using the N-word. It is disgusting, and it's pretty funny. Like, I don't call people honkies or crackers. White people hate being called a honky. I don't see what the problem is. I don't even know what it means. Or a cracker. They hate it. But you can drop the N-word. And the N-word, like, who says it anymore? You're in the 2020, like, who says it anymore? But there's people that say it. And it's sad and it's pathetic. So you're stuck. Really, you're stuck. And we would have thought the racism would have died off with your old ass. But it didn't, because you passed it down to your grandchildren. How disgusting that you would pass your hate, because kids are so susceptible to lies. They believe in fantasy and fairy tales. If you tell, black person coming cross street, if your black person comes, they're going to eat you up. They're monsters. They're cannibal. They're this, they're that. And they keep passing it down because you believe grandma. You believe your mother, and it's your mother. So it's your fault for teaching your kids that. And thank you to the youth, this new generation that knows the difference, that have a lot of friends from all backgrounds, from all hues of skin. Thank God that they have found their own way and said all of us are full of it. And they are loving each other the way they choose. So God bless them, and rock on, my young fighters. So thank you so much. I'm Cynthia W. Hammer. You are watching the Hammer Away Show. Every 26th of the month, I decided to do it a little early because I'm traveling. I have things to do, and I wanted to air my show while it was fresh on my mind. So thank you so much for watching. Pick up a copy of The Seven Rivers, A Good Case, and Iceberg, ICEBURG. And you can watch some of my shows on Facebook Live, LA Talk Radio, and Mix Station. Just go to mixstation.com, latalkradio.com, and you can look on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. Go in your local bookstore, pick up a copy of my books. I'm Cynthia W. Hammer. Thank you so much. And remember to keep God first. God bless you, everyone.